This happened just a few days ago. I had been a photographer for years, always looking for new places to explore. Ashwood had drawn me in. It had been abandoned for 15 years. I knew the stories about the town, the sudden disappearances. I thought I was ready. On my first night, I checked into a small motel. It felt worn down, like time had forgotten it. I was settling in when I heard a faint shuffling outside. I thought maybe it was just the wind at first, but I wasn't sure. I crept over to the window and peeked through the curtain. I saw shadows moving in the dark. My heart was pounding. I stepped outside, but nothing was there. The air was cold against my skin. I felt uneasy, but I tried to shake it off. It was just an old town, right? The next day, I wandered down the main street. There was an eerie feeling. Shops sat empty, and weeds grew through cracked sidewalks. I took some pictures, but I felt eyes on me. I thought I heard whispers in the wind. It was unsettling. Every time I turned around, there was only silence. As I explored, things became weirder. Shadows darted out of the corner of my eye. Each time I looked, they vanished. I started to doubt my sanity. One night, I noticed a figure standing near an old storefront. When I got closer, it was just a pile of trash. I felt foolish for getting scared so easily. I found old photographs in an abandoned cafe. Families looked happy, frozen in time. But they were gone now. I began to feel like I was being watched, but I didn't tell anyone. I thought it was just my nerves. Then I noticed something strange. My belongings moved in my motel room. My camera, which had been on the table, was suddenly on the bed. Chills raced down my spine. I wanted to leave, but curiosity pulled me back. What happened to the people of Ashwood? I discovered letters suggesting they left without a word. Maybe there was a deeper reason for their departure. The feeling of being watched intensified. I tried to shake it off, but the more I investigated, the more I felt something lurking just outside my view. One night, I heard the shuffling again. It was louder this time. My heart raced as I stepped outside. I turned the corner and what I saw made my stomach drop. Shadows were all around me. I felt a presence close behind. "Hello?" I called out, my voice shaky. No answer came. I took a step back, but it felt like something blocked my way. The air turned thick and cold. I turned around quickly, expecting to see someone. But the street was empty. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it. I felt dizzy. Then a whisper floated through the air, barely audible, "Leave now." Fear gripped me, and I stumbled back. I was not alone in Ashwood. I could feel it. I ran back to my room, not looking back, the shadows creeping at my heels. I couldn't escape what I had stumbled into. I barely slept that night. Each creak of the old motel building felt like a reminder of my foolishness. Had I done the right thing by trying to uncover Ashwood's past? The whispers haunted every corner of my mind. My camera sat on the bedside table, an ever-present reminder of my journey. Morning came, but the sun didn't feel warm. I pushed through the door into the street, feeling a sense of dread settle over me. I thought about leaving, but I had to know more. I decided to return to the cafe. Maybe there was something I missed in those old photos. As I stepped through the threshold of the cafe, I was immediately struck by the silence. The place felt different in daylight, but there was an oppressive atmosphere. Dust danced in the beams of sunlight coming through the broken windows. I moved cautiously, my footsteps echoing in the empty space. I searched the tables, hoping to find more clues about the town as former residents. Then I spotted a small, tattered notebook near the counter. As I flipped through its fragile pages, I realized it was filled with entries from someone who had lived here. The final entries were frantic, scribbled in a hurried hand. "They know," one line read. "We must leave before it's too late." I felt a chill wash over me. Who was they? I looked around the cafe, half expecting something to emerge from the shadows. My heart raced as I rifled through more pages. "The darkness comes when the sun sets. Do not look back," another entry warned. I felt trapped. Was I too deep into this mystery? I had to get back to my room and think. As I turned to leave, I noticed something in the corner of my eye. A fleeting movement. I turned sharply, but it was gone. I hurried outside, clutching the notebook tightly. The streets were still empty, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I rushed back to the motel, and when I reached my room, I locked the door behind me. I wandered the small space, glancing out of the window every few minutes. My hands trembled as I opened the notebook again. More entries revealed the town's dark transformation. People had stopped visiting because of something lurking in the shadows. The entries grew more desperate, and I realized they weren't just about physical danger, they hinted at something far worse. Then, as I scanned the final entry, I felt a shift in the air. My breath caught in my throat. The shadows in the room seemed to thicken, creeping closer to me. I turned to look at the door, and the knob rattled violently, as if someone was trying to get in. Panic surged through me as I pressed my back against the wall, my heart pounding in my chest. I wasn't alone. I thought I'd escaped, but Ashwood wouldn't let me leave that easily. "Who's there?" I shouted, but my voice shook. The knob rattled again, and then everything went quiet. My mind raced. Should I open the door? I didn't want to find out what was on the other side. But uncertainty nodded me. What if my only chance to escape was slipping away? Then there was a soft whisper, chilling and clear. "Join us." Ice coursed through my veins. I took a deep breath, trying to gather my courage. I had to find out what was happening before it was too late. I stayed pressed against the wall, frozen in fear. My mind raced as the whisper lingered in the air, reverberating off the peeling plaster. "Join us." It felt like an invitation, but I knew better. This was a trap. I had to act. I grabbed my camera, its weight comforting in my hands. I could document whatever happened next. I needed proof if I made it out of this nightmare. I stepped toward the door, my heart still pounding. There was no longer a question of whether to confront whatever was out there, it was about survival. Slowly, I turned the knob. The door creaked open, and the hallway beyond was dim, filled with unsettling shadows that stretched like fingers reaching for me. I peered out, straining my eyes to see anything beyond the murky light. The hallway was empty. I took a hesitant step forward, listening intently. Silence hung thick in the air. I moved cautiously, my breath shallow. The flickering fluorescent lights overhead buzzed ominously, casting strange shapes on the walls. I glanced back at my room, feeling a pull toward the safety of my locked door. But I couldn't go back. The more I lingered here, the more trapped I felt. I pushed forward, heading toward the staircase that led down to the lobby. As I descended, each step creaked ominously. Then I heard a soft echo of laughter, chilling and distant, as if it came from the very walls themselves. I paused, my heart racing. I shouldn't be here. I should have left when I had the chance. But something deeper pulled me to uncover what lay beneath Ashwood's surface. Reaching the bottom, I cautiously crossed the lobby. My stomach churned as I noticed the faint outlines of chairs and tables covered in dust. It had been years since anyone had wanted to grab a cup of coffee here. Then I spotted something unusual, an envelope peeking out from behind the counter. It was untouched, like a secret waiting to be revealed. I approached it, curious and anxious. The cafe felt alive now, as if it watched me with every step I took. I pulled the envelope free and opened it. Inside were photographs, black and white images of the town. But the people in them looked hollow, eyes blank. My gaze snagged on one photo. It was a group of townsfolk gathered near the old oak tree in the square. They looked happy, but there was a shadow behind them, a dark shape that twisted around the trees, almost indistinguishable among the branches. That's when I felt it again, a cold breath against the back of my neck. Panic surged through me. I turned slowly, and there it was, a figure standing in the shadows, barely illuminated by the flickering lights. It wore a tattered coat, face obscured. "Help us," the figure whispered, voice raspy and low. I stumbled back, the photographs scattering to the ground. I had to get out. I rushed toward the door, but the figure stepped forward, blocking my path. My pulse raced as I searched for any way to escape. Then the whispers surrounded me, louder now, echoing through the space. Join us. I backed away, heart racing. I was surrounded. The reality of Ashwood crashed over me like a wave. There was no easy way out. In that moment, the darkness closed in, a labyrinth of despair. I was caught in a web of shadows, and the only way out was deeper into the truth of the town. Desperation clotted me, but I knew I had to face whatever haunted Ashwood. I had to uncover their secret. I bolted toward the door, but the figure stepped closer, a shadow among shadows. "Help us," it repeated, voice rasping like the wind through the trees. Just as I thought I might scream, the lights blinked twice and went out, plunging the cafe into darkness. I stumbled back, my heart hammering in my chest. Panic spurred me into action, and I groped for the edge of the counter to steady myself. I had to find a way out now. Fumbling in the dark, I tripped over a chair and hit the floor hard, the breath knocked from my lungs. "Join us," the voice whispered again, but now it felt nearer, saturating the air with an eerie resonance. I clamped my eyes shut, trying to quiet the chaos in my head. I didn't want to join anyone. I wanted to escape. I pushed myself back up, instinct leading me toward the other door that led to the kitchen. It was worth a shot. I darted through, feeling my way along the wall. Each sound made my skin crawl, the tinkling of ghostly laughter echoing behind me. There was movement ahead. Something shifted in the dark. I froze, holding my breath. Was it a trick of my mind? The darkness felt alive, breathing down my neck. Fueled by desperation, I rushed forward to the back exit, throwing the door open just as the figure emerged from the shadows of the cafe. I bolted outside, bursting into the cool night air. I stumbled onto the cobblestone path, heart racing from more than feared. I stepped into the garden. The moon hung low, illuminating twisted trees and overgrown weeds that crawled like fingers across the ground. I turned in a circle, searching for any sign of life, but the town felt abandoned and haunted. Then, across the street, I spotted what looked like a flicker of light from a house. It wasn't completely dark. I had to get closer. Maybe someone was still here. As I crept forward, a shiver raced down my spine. I felt eyes on me, a sensation that compelled me to look over my shoulder. Nothing. Just the twisting shadows of Ashwood. I reached the porch of the house and peered inside. The living room was lit by candlelight, casting soft flickering shadows that danced against the walls. My heart raced at the thought of entering. The warmth from those flickering flames felt like a promise, but something else nagged at me. What if they were waiting for me? What if they were part of whatever darkness haunted this town? I turned to leave, but then I heard laughter, a child's laughter. It echoed sweetly through the night, mingling with the faint sound of whispers. I hesitated, torn between fear and curiosity. That laughter felt real, and I needed to know who was inside. With shaky breath, I moved up the creaking steps, my hand trembling as it rested on the doorknob. The whispers grew louder, swarming around me, pulling me forward. This was it. I was either going to uncover the truth or walk straight into a trap. I pushed the door open, heart pounding. That's when I saw it. The room was filled with shadowy figures, their features distorted and faces unmistakably familiar. They turned to me, eyes gleaming in the candlelight. "Welcome back," they said in unison, their hollow voices brushing against my skin like cold fingers. The room felt suffocating, the familiar faces blurring into a nightmare. I took an involuntary step back, my pulse quickening. How could they be here? They were all supposed to be gone. Each one of them had vanished years ago, swallowed by the darkness of Ashwood. I glanced around, desperate for an escape route. The flickering flames cast eerie shapes across the walls, but it was the figures that pinned me in place. They drew closer, each movement hurting me into the center of the room, into their grasp. "Why are you here?" I managed to ask, my voice trembling. "We've been waiting," one of them replied, the tone unsettlingly calm. It was like hearing a long-lost friend turn into something unrecognizable. Waiting for what? My throat felt dry. I didn't want to hear the answer. "To show you the truth," they all chimed in unison, mirroring the same haunting cadence. I shook my head, trying to push away the dread creeping in. I didn't want any part of this, but their eyes held me captive. Before I could think, the laughter of that child echoed again, clearer now. It sounded alive, sweet, playful. It coursed through me like a familiar lullaby, warming the icy grip of fear for just a moment. Where is she? I whispered into the darkness, the question escaping my lips before I could stop it. A figure in the corner moved. My breath caught in my throat. It was small and slight, standing just behind the row of shadowy forms. The candlelight flickered, revealing a child, her eyes wide, full of innocence. But as she stepped forward, something was off. Her face twisted into a frown, an expression too mature for her age. She can't leave, and neither can you, the child said, the echo twisting my stomach. I felt a knot of panic. Who was she? I had to get out of here. Let me go. I shouted, feeling the weight of their glares on me. My heart pounded loud enough that I was sure they could hear it, but they stepped forward, encroaching upon me. You belong with us, they insisted. The shadows danced closer, flickering. You've always belonged. I turned and ran for the door, but it slammed shut in an instant. My palms stung as I pushed against the wooden surface. No amount of force would budge it. I spun around, finding their faces now twisting in mirrored malice. Please. I cried, feeling the walls close in. I could feel the air pulling tight around me. I just want to leave. The laughter rang again, louder now, a cacophony mixing with the figure's relentless murmuring. You can't escape your fate. I froze. A memory ignited within me, the way Ashwood had changed overnight, friends and neighbors disappearing like shadows at dusk. Had I returned only to walk into the very trap I had tried to avoid? Suddenly, a door behind the figures creaked open, the bright moonlight spilling in like a beacon offering hope. I hesitated for a heartbeat. A part of me screamed to stay, that maybe the truth would bring closure, but another part screamed louder for escape. Taking a deep breath, I pushed aside the fear, lunging toward that sliver of light. It was my only chance. I barreled through the figures, feeling their fingers graze my arms, cold and electric. Then, just before I reached freedom, a name echoed in my mind: Sophia. Would she still be in this town, lost among the whispers? As I broke through the threshold, I heard their voices rise, desperate, fervent. It's just the beginning. They called out, the shadows retreating as I threw myself into the night. I gasped, searching the darkened streets for something, anything that made sense, but now I knew I had to find Sophia. She might be the only one who could answer my questions. The streets of Ashwood were eerily quiet, as if the entire town held its breath in anticipation. I felt a shiver crawl up my spine. It was a familiar chill, one that reminded me of childhood nights spent under the covers, listening to tales of the strange and supernatural. But this was real. I was alone, running from ghosts of my past, and the only thing I had was the sound of my own footsteps echoing against the cracked pavement as I darted past long-abandoned houses, their paint peeling, windows shattered. The memories flooded back: playdates, birthday parties, laughter that once filled the air. Now, it seemed like the walls themselves mourned the loss of the town's life. I pushed through the dread, focusing instead on finding Sophia. Her absence had haunted me for years. Perhaps it was time to confront that ghost. My heart raced as I headed toward the old playground. If Sophia was anywhere, that was where she'd be. We used to swing under the big oak tree, imagining adventures in far-off lands. I hoped it would still be standing, a remnant from our childhood when everything seemed possible. As I approached, the air felt different, thicker, heavier. I hesitated at the edge of the park. There was an undeniable tension hanging in the air. I scanned the area, half expecting Sophia to appear as if she had never left. But no one was there. Then, I noticed something on the ground: a child's pink shoe, half buried in the dirt. My breath hitched in my throat. Hadn't I seen this shoe before? It looked identical to the one Sophia had worn the last time I saw her. I knelt, fingers trembling as I brushed away the dirt. Is anyone there? I called out. My voice cracked, swallowed by the oppressive silence. No answer came, only the rustling of leaves overhead. Just then, a distant giggle echoed through the trees. It was high-pitched and playful, just like the sound I'd heard before. I bolted in the direction of the noise, urgency swelling in my chest. Sophia? Is that you? Reaching the old oak tree, my heart sank. Nothing but shadows greeted me. I felt the weight of the shoe in my palm. My thoughts raced. Was it a sign? Had something happened to Sophia? I had to make sense of this. I backed away, scanning the trees, desperate for any sign of her. But before I could reconsider my next move, a flicker of movement caught my eye. A figure shifted behind the tree. I squinted, my heart pounding loudly in my ears. "Who's there?" I called, ready to run if necessary. A small face peeked out from behind the trunk. The child's eyes glimmered like the moon. I recognized that look. "You're looking for me," she said softly. My breath caught. It couldn't be her, could it? But the resemblance was undeniable. "I am Sophia?" I stepped closer, hope mingling with fear. "No. Not yet," she said, something dark flickering across her face. "You have to keep looking." Before I could reply, the world began to blur, fading into a swirl of colors. "What do you mean?" I shouted, but the connection snapped like a taut thread pulled too far. Then everything went dark. I gasped as light flooded back into my vision. I was no longer at the playground but standing on an empty street, the sun low in the sky, casting long shadows. Confusion washed over me. How had I gotten here? I looked around, searching for any sign of the girl, of Sophia. But I was alone in this deserted part of town. The buildings loomed around me, and a familiar sense of dread crawled under my skin. I stumbled forward, trying to retrace my steps, but the surroundings felt foreign and unsettling. Someone had pulled me away, but why? I took a deep breath, needing to regain my composure. I needed answers. I walked towards a nearby corner store that had long since closed its doors. Its windows were boarded up, a layer of dust covering the remnants of a once vibrant sign. I approached, peering through a crack in the wooden planks. A flash of movement caught my eye. I started. There was something inside. I pressed my face against the wood, squinting to see clearer. I could make out the outline of a figure hunched over. Was it a person? I knocked lightly on the boarded door, hoping to get a response. "Hello?" My voice sounded small in the emptiness. No answer came, just the low creak of the building settling. I was about to give up when I heard the shuffling sounds inside, a rustle of fabric and then silence. My heart raced. Should I go in? My legs felt rooted to the ground, my fear building like a wave threatening to crash down on me. Just as I turned to leave, the door creaked open a few inches. I froze. "Who's there?" I called out again, louder this time. The figure leaned closer, partially illuminated by a slant of sunlight. I strained to get a better look. It was a woman. Her face was familiar, yet I couldn't place her. The moment was electric, a flicker of recognition dancing on the edge of my memory. "You've returned," she said, her voice low and haunting, sending chills down my spine. "You mustn't be here." "Where's Sophia?" I demanded, stepping closer despite my instinct to run. "I need to know what happened to her." The woman shook her head, a sorrowful expression crossing her features. "She needs you to continue searching. Time is different here." "Different? What do you mean?" I felt the walls closing in, panic rising in my throat. "Things are not what they seem. They never were." She turned her head slightly, glancing behind her, as if sensing a presence. "You're not alone. Watch your back." I barely processed her warning when I felt a gust of wind sweep through, rattling the boards of the store. My heart raced. "Wait. Who else is here?" But before she could answer, a loud crash erupted from within the store, and the door swung open wide. Shadows spilled forth, dark and shifting, revealing more figures lurking just beyond the threshold. Then, everything seemed to spiral out of control. I turned to run, but the shadows loomed closer, reaching for me. I had to escape. I couldn't let this town keep its grip on me. Someone was here, and they were waiting. My legs moved before I could think. I bolted down the street, adrenaline pushing me faster than I thought possible. The shadows behind me whispered, their murmurs echoing off the silence of the abandoned town. I didn't dare look back. Every instinct screamed that they were close, and I needed to put distance between us. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs ached. I finally skidded to a stop when I reached a narrow alley, the walls closing in around me. I pressed my back against the rough brick, trying to catch my breath. I could hear nothing but the pounding of my heart and the soft sound of shuffling in the distance. Were they following? I peeked around the corner. The alley led to another street, darkened by the setting sun. I spotted a flickering streetlight at the far end. It looked like the only safe place to go. I took a step, then another, each one cautious. My mind raced, piecing together what had happened. The woman's warning echoed in my thoughts. Time is different here. What did that even mean? As I reached the street, I felt the air shift again. Cool gusts whipped around me, and shadows danced just out of sight. I flicked my gaze back towards the alley. No one was there yet, but I could feel the looming presence of something sinister. Just then, I heard a loud thud, followed by a soft cry from somewhere near me. Panic surged. I turned towards the noise, scanning the street. My eyes landed on an old van parked crookedly against the curb. It looked as out of place as I felt. Was someone inside? Before I could decide, I approached cautiously, hoping for help but fearing a trap. I tapped my knuckles against the window. Hello? Is anyone there? The glass slowly lowered, revealing a young man with a scruffy beard and wild eyes. He stared at me, his face a mix of fear and urgency. You shouldn't be out here, he said quickly. They'll find you. Who? I asked, glancing back as unease crept back into my mind. Shadows, he muttered, shaking his head. The ones you saw inside the store. They've been looking for someone like you. I felt a tremor of fear at his words. What do you mean someone like me? He swallowed hard, glancing down the street. This town, it's a trap. People who come back don't leave. They become part of it. Before I could respond, a loud crash echoed from the direction I had come. The man's eyes widened. We need to go. Now. He flung the door open and gestured me inside. My instincts clashed. Part of me wanted to flee again, but another part craved answers. I hesitated, torn between the shadows behind me and the mystery in front of me. Then, I decided. I jumped into the van, slamming the door shut just as something shifted in the alley behind me. I dared a glance over my shoulder, heart racing, bracing for whatever awaited on the other side of my choice. What other truths were hidden in this ghostly town? As the man turned the key in the ignition, I knew one thing. I wasn't safe yet. Not by a long shot. The chase was only just beginning. The engine sputtered to life with a growl that sent a jolt through me. The man glanced at me, eyes wide with urgency. We need to get moving. Now. As he threw the van into gear, a sense of panic washed over me. What had I just agreed to? I didn't even know his name. Wait, what is your name? I asked, looking around nervously as we picked up speed. Sam, he replied, his grip tight on the steering wheel. And we have to get to the safe house before night falls. Safe house? I echoed, trying to process that information. What do you mean? He didn't answer right away, his focus locked ahead. I could see his knuckles turning white. I looked out the window, trying to get my bearings. The streets felt like a twisted maze, familiar yet disorienting. Everything looked the same, as if time had been trapped in this place, but eerily different. We're not safe out here after dark, Sam finally said, his voice low. Those shadows? They come alive. They hunt. You're different, and they want you. You don't want to be out when the sun goes down. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. Different how? What are you talking about? Before he could respond, something darted across the road. I screamed as Sam swerved, barely avoiding the figure. What the hell was that? I gasped, heart racing. More of them, he muttered, glancing in the rearview mirror. It's not just shadows. They're real, and they're getting stronger. My stomach twisted as I realized we were being hunted. What do they want from me? I don't know, Sam said, shaking his head. But whatever it is, we'll figure it out at the safe house. It's south, the only place where we might have a chance. We turned a corner, and the flickering lights of the town grew dimmer. The shadows seemed to close in around the van. My breath quickened as we drove deeper into the heart of the darkness ahead. I spotted an old warehouse, partially hidden behind a cluster of overgrown trees. That's it. Sam pointed. We'll go inside and barricade the door. It should keep them out. What if it doesn't? I asked, fear creeping back in. What if we're trapped? We don't have a choice, he replied, urgency seeping into his voice. We can't stay in the open. They can sense us. My heart pounded. As we pulled up to the warehouse, the wind howled. Sam jumped out and gestured for me to follow. I hesitated, glancing fearfully at the shadows creeping along the edges of the street. Come on! He shouted, his voice slicing through the tension. I scrambled out of the van and ran to the door, but then I froze. That's when I saw it. A figure, cloaked in darkness, lurking just beyond the tree line. Fear gripped me, and I recoiled. Sam! We need to hurry. He turned back, eyes wide with alarm. It's here! Quickly! We rushed inside, Sam slamming the door behind us. Silence engulfed us, but the threat lingered just outside. We stood in the dimly lit warehouse, our breaths stilled as the heavy silence enveloped us. Shadows flickered against the cracks in the walls, distorted silhouettes that seemed to pulse with an unholy life of their own. I pressed my back against the door, heart racing, and glanced at Sam, whose face was pale yet resolute. Do you think they'll follow us in? I whispered, dread curling in my stomach. They've always followed like a pack, Sam replied, urgency lacing his voice. He hurried toward the nearest pile of broken pallets and began to stack them against the door. I joined him, adrenaline driving me as we worked silently, each creak of the wood an unsettling reminder of the darkness lurking just beyond. After we fortified the entrance, we stepped back, eyeing the ominous shadows that danced across the room's walls. We should find a light, I suggested, scanning the dim interior for anything that might offer refuge from the encroaching darkness. No light. It'll draw them, Sam cautioned. His gaze flicked to the windows, where shadows loomed as the sun continued to sink beyond the horizon. We need to listen. The warehouse was a labyrinth of rusted machinery and dust-coated memories, but in the unbearable quiet, I could hear the faintest whispers coiled around us like a smog. They're close, Sam, I stammered, fighting the urge to bolt and hide. Just breathe, he said, his voice now a soothing tether. We found a corner where the shadows were thinner, and we crouched low, bracing for whatever was to come. Minutes dragged into what felt like hours. The atmosphere thickened, almost suffocating, as though the shadows conspired against us. Just when I thought I could bear it no longer, I heard a gentle scraping sound, like something trailing along the floorboards. My heart thundered in my chest as I strained to listen. What is that? I gasped, barely able to form the words. I don't know, but it's getting closer, Sam murmured, his eyes wide with fear. I could feel the weight of the darkness pushing in, crowding the air around us, making it hard to think. Then sudden banging resounded from the door we barricaded. The noise was sporadic, something was trying to break in. I instinctively tightened my grip on the fragment of my camera that I had taken from outside the cafe, its weight barely comforting in my palm. The sounds intensified, echoes of hissing voices weaving through the air, merging into a desperate plea. Help us, leave us, join us. The whispers coalesced into a dreadful harmony, wrapping around my mind. I turned to Sam, panic rising like bile. What do they want? They want you because you came back, he replied, his voice trembling. They feed on the lost souls of this place. In that moment, a surge of clarity gripped me. It was not just about survival anymore, it was about understanding. But why? What happened here? I don't know, he said, desperation creeping in. We need to find out, or we won't escape. Just then, the banging stopped, replaced by an eerie silence. It was heavy, choking. I could feel a spectral presence fill the room, pressing against my skin, making my heart race with dread. "What's going on?" I asked. "Watch out!" Sam shouted, pulling me out of the way just as the door burst inward, shadows spilling like ink across the floor. "Run!" We darted back, sprinting deeper into the warehouse. Shadows chased us, the air thickening with their whispers, tangling my thoughts with fear. What haunted this place? What other secrets lay buried beneath the surface? As we ran through narrow corridors and empty rooms, I spotted a small window. It was my only chance. "There!" I shouted, pointing toward the sliver of light. "If we get through there, we might escape." We hurled ourselves toward the window, hands grasping metal and grime as we heaved upwards. Just as we reached the ledge, the shadows surged, reaching with cold fingers, desperate to capture us once more. "Get out!" Sam yelled, pushing me through. I clambered into the open air, landing on the cool ground outside. I gasped for breath as I helped him through, and we rolled onto the grass, panting heavily, but we couldn't linger. I glanced back, shadows slithered just inside the building, swirling like smoke as they gathered at the threshold. "What now?" I asked, panic lacing my voice. "We need to find a place to hide until morning," Sam said, scanning the surroundings. "I think I know where to go." Just then, a soft giggle echoed through the twilight, a familiar voice. My heart tightened. "Sophia?" I murmured, drawn toward it. "No. Don't search for her," Sam warned, grabbing my arm. "It's a trap." But her laughter beckoned, pulling me deeper into the gloaming, until the shadows began to flicker away from the path ahead. I felt both hope and fear surge through me, but unable to resist, I turned toward the sound. "Wait!" Sam shouted after me, but I was already moving. It was a call that tugged at something deep within me, urging me onward. As I crossed the threshold under the faint illumination, the shadows appeared to hold back, swirling in uncertainty. Then, everything around me twisted. I entered the trees, unshackling time and distance. The laughter faded, replaced by the haunting whispers once more. "Join us despite the shadows' calls." I pressed forward, propelled by the hope of finding Sophia and truth behind the veil of Ashwood's darkness. Whether or not I escaped this place, the whispers threatened to haunt me forever. Then I caught a glimpse of figure bounding between the trees. It was her. The darkness revealed itself to wrap around me as I ran, light and shadows mingling in a dance that might either save me or consume me whole. I knew I had stepped into a realm where reality broke, and I had to face both the fear of what Ashwood had become and the remnants of those it lost. Would I find Sophia or lose myself? Only time would tell. Pressed against the curtain of darkness and light, the fate of Ashwood irrevocably intertwined with my own.